Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some banana bread, mini banana bread loaves. We're going to fry up some chicken for a chicken salad with a kind of a homemade balsamic dressing. So let's start by getting our bananas in for our banana bread. Black bananas or brown bananas are the best bananas for banana bread. I pop mine in the fridge to kind of keep them from going moldy, but these are going to be the sweetest. So this black color comes from the sugar and it will make the best banana bread. You have to use overripe bananas or your banana bread won't be very good. It won't have the right texture. It won't have the sweetness to it. So this is, I will say, this is where you want it, brownish black. So we're going to use 6 bananas because we're making about 8 mini loaves, which is kind of equal to 2 kind of smaller loaves, 2 smaller big loaves. Okay, get these last things and then I can throw it away. Look at all that kind of caramelization there. That's the sugar syrup on it. That means that's going to be super sweet in our banana bread. So it's perfect. Okay. So let me get there and then we're going to add in our sugars. Let me give my hands a quick wash. Just to rinse a little bit of that banana juice off. We're going to add in 3/4 a cup of granulated sugar and 3/4 a cup of brown sugar. Perfect. So we've got 3/4 of the granulated. And then we're going to do 3/4 of brown sugar. And you're going to want that packed in, so firmly packed. There we go. So that's a 1/2 cup. And I'm going to just do this one halfway of that. So 3/4 of a cup. Get some of that brown sugar off my hands. And then we're going to mix the bananas and the sugars together until we've got a kind of a liquid pulp forming. And I'm going to use my hand mixers for this. You can definitely use just a spatula too, but the hand mixers really help it kind of come together. There we go. Now, when I add my butter in here in just a little bit, then I'm going to switch to my spatula when we get to the flour part because I don't want to overmix it. But for now, we're good with the hand mixers. We're going to add in 2 eggs. So 1 and 2. And this is going to be for our banana bread. And then we're going to make our fried chicken salad. So I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, I'm kind of craving fried chicken salad. I don't know why. We had pickle chips last night, and I think those just remind me of a fried chicken salad. We're going to use a tablespoon of baking powder. And then a teaspoon of baking soda. And that's probably going to be the very end of my jar, but let's see how far we can get with it. There we go. And then 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to just add a dash of salt, probably like a 1/2 teaspoon. So maybe a little more than a dash. But we're using salted butter, so we don't need too much salt in here. But you want a little bit to help really enhance the flavors. We're going to give this a quick mix up. And then we're going to add in our butter and then our flour. Go. And then I'm just going to add in my butter now while we're mixing. And this is a 1/2 cup of salted butter melted and kind of brought down to room temperature so it's not so hot that it will scald the eggs. There we go. And then I just want to make sure I mix this until all of that baking soda and baking powder are incorporated. That way you don't have to sift them into your flours. Now that we're done with this, put her over here. I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse. I got a little brown sugar on there. Now we are going to add in 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Okay. So 1, 2, and 3. Slide this over here. Now I'm going to use my spatula to mix it because I don't want to over mix it. Otherwise, I'm going to get a stiffer banana bread and I want a nice, lighter, fluffier one. So I'm going to mix it. It's still going to be kind of chunky. It's going to be thicker because this is a butter-based banana bread instead of oil. And butter always leaves you with a thicker batter, but it will thin out once it starts to heat up. So we're just going to mix it until it's chunky, but we don't see any just flour sitting on top. And that will give us a really fluffy batter or fluffy banana bread. There we go. Just about here. Do a couple little folds over. Now, if you wanted to, you could add in chocolate chips or walnuts or anything that your heart's desires in your banana bread. But I'm keeping ours plain because that is typically everybody's favorite way in the house. I've got my mini loaf pan. So these are going to make 8 little mini loaves. They're kind of cute. But I like these over the big loaves because they cook up faster without over drying them. But you're going to want to make sure you spray them down really well so that they don't get stuck in there. Okay. And I'm going to start spooning in each one into my little loaf pan here. And then we'll have these cooking in the oven at 350. There we go. And again, I'm just doing a big spoonful. We'll even it out once we've got our last ones in. I think I might have enough to make another mini loaf. I have another mini loaf, not quite this big of a loaf, or not that small. It's a little bit bigger. Let me grab it. Where did it go? Okay. I guess I don't see it. So we'll save it for a second round. We'll even it out. I'll save this up. We don't have that. Must be somewhere else. Little Jackie likes to get into my cabinet. So I'm going to just even this out a little bit on each one. There we go. And then we'll give it a couple shakes and then we're going to add this to the oven at 350. And it's going to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes. Doesn't need nearly as long as traditional banana bread, which takes about an hour. But I feel that's that always makes such a dry banana bread. These stay really moist. Okay, you give my hands a quick rinse. We're gonna give it a good shake. That just prevents any air pockets from forming. And then we're gonna pop these in our oven at 350. So you see here, I've shaken them out and they've all kind of gotten down flatter now. That just kind of helps with that process. Clean it up. I'm going to put these on the top rack. And I'm going to set my timer for about, I'm going to do 22 minutes. And that way I'll know they're just about ready there. We'll check on them when we we're going to make some croutons here. So we'll check on them then as well. Let's get our croutons going. So I have some leftover sourdough bread. I'm going to cut it up and then we're going to dress it up and we'll put them in there because this is going to go on our salad. So we're going to start out by kind of making some slices in our bread. This is great to use up some leftover bread that you have. Here, this might be easier to cut it there. We're just going to cube it. Then we're going to toss it with some oil and spices. And then we'll bake it until it gets nice and crisp. And the thing is, when they come out of the oven, the croutons will be soft. But once they've cooled down, they'll harden up and they'll crisp up. So a little bit of bread can make a lot of croutons. Sourdough bread makes the best croutons, in my opinion.
You have a question? Are you making a chicken Caesar salad?
Kind of like a Caesar salad. I'm not making Caesar dressing. I'm going to make kind of a creamy balsamic dressing, but kind of just like a Caesar salad. We'll throw on a couple other veggies as well. But I love croutons. My kids love croutons. My oldest daughter doesn't believe a salad can exist without croutons. She's always like, where are the croutons? Anytime I serve her a salad without croutons. And it's really funny because we'll, buy store-bought croutons plenty of times. And my kids will just eat them as if they're like a cracker. They'll grab the bag of croutons and they're just eating them out of the bag. And I just think it's very odd, but I mean, croutons are delicious. So we're just cubing these up into nice little bite-sized pieces. I will say with homemade croutons, don't get them too large because otherwise they're really hard to eat when they're too big to really bite into with a fork. So try to go smaller. And they're very filling. And I will say I also enjoy eating these just straight up instead of also in a salad, just snacking on them because they're delicious. Okay. We've almost got all of these guys cut up. But anytime you make like a savory bread, this is perfect for it. Like a savory sourdough, it will go. I've done like my pesto sourdough and I've turned them into croutons, sun-dried tomato. They make great croutons. Okay, we're going to place this on my baking sheet here. Get all those little crumblies. And then we're going to kind of make a little pile here. That way the olive oil can kind of coat it. And you're going to put about, I want to say maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil on it. I just give it a good drizzle over it to kind of coat the top. We're going to coat them, but you want them to crisp up and crunch up. Then we're going to add a little bit of Italian seasoning that gives them a little spice, and then a little bit of garlic salt. You want to add a little bit of salt because that just brings them up a level, but don't add too much because a little bit of salt carries it.
You have a question? Any ideas for dinner?
I'm still processing what we're having for dinner. I did go shopping earlier today, so I'm fully stocked, but I haven't just landed on it yet. It's gonna be how I feel. We're gonna put about a half a teaspoon of garlic salt over, a couple good shakes, and now we're gonna just go in with our hands and really kind of coat it. And I will say, give them a good squeeze so that olive oil will not just suck up on there, but you want them to really coat everything. There we go. Perfect. Spread this out. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash, and then we're going to just pop this in the oven right underneath the banana bread. So let's get that olive oil off my hands.
You have a question. Did you remember to get Worcestershire?
No comment. I completely forgot again. And I realized that after every time. It's one of those things that I don't buy. And my husband's like, you should just buy the big gallon one on Amazon. And I was like, no, we don't need that one. I'll get it next time. I should have. Okay, we're going to pop these under here. We're going to let them cook up. We'll come back in like 10 or so minutes on there. Let's see. So I'm going to check out my timer. So 2:27. I'm going to try to remember when 10 minutes are. Croutons can take around 10 minutes. You're going to think they're not done because they're going to come out of the oven soft, but they crisp up. So don't over bake them. Otherwise you'll have rocks. Okay, let's get our chicken prepped for our fried chicken dish. So let me reach forward. Our fried chicken salad. And we're going to make our we'll trim our chicken up, but first let's make our dredge. So let me grab my flour from right over here. I'm just using 2 really big chicken breasts. I'm going to trim them up a little bit because they have a bit of fat on them, but we don't have a huge amount of chicken on it. You know, we'll have lots of other things. So I'm just going to start with maybe like 1 1/4 cups of flour. I did remember to buy paprika and onion powder, so I got most of my stuff on my list, but not that. And I keep saying, I'm like, oh, I really need to get one because I'm going to need this on the camping trip because it will, Worcestershire makes everything taste better, especially grilled food. We're going to add in about 1 tablespoon of onion powder. It's going to give it a nice flavor, nice savory flavor. There we go. Paprika is going to give it a nice golden color, and it has a really savory flavor to it, but it's so mild, but really it takes you from like a blonde fried chicken to a nice like golden brown, assuming I can open this guy. There we go. We're going to put in about 1/2 tablespoon. You don't need much to give it that nice color. And then we're going to use some black pepper, give it a little kick. Not about 1/2 teaspoon, not maybe a little bit more. I'm a spice baby, so I don't handle a lot of spice, but you need it a little bit. I love pepper now. We're gonna add in a little bit of Mrs. Dash's, not Mrs. Dash's, some garlic salt. And this is where your chicken's gonna get the saltiness. So you're just gonna add in about 1/2 tablespoon. And then I'm going to use, this is the Costco version of Mrs. Dash's original blend. We're going to use about 1 tablespoon of that. Don't feel like you've overspiced it because you want a lot of spices in the breading, because that is what's going to flavor your whole piece of chicken. And you don't want to have a bland piece of chicken because there's nothing you can do after you fried it other than dip it in something. So we're going to mix this up. We will add in some panko breadcrumbs after we dredge everything, but I'm going to make sure, I just want to get everything ready. There we go. Kind of mix it. A lot of times the spices like to hide in my corners of my bowl. There we go. So you can even see that paprika is already turning that flour kind of a pinkish color, and that's going to give you just a lovely golden color. Yeah. Double eggshell. And we just need about 3 eggs for this. I will say, always err on the side of having a little bit extra egg and flour versus a little too under, because it's nothing as worse than trying to have to add more egg or make more dredge later. We're going to mix this up. There we go. I just want to make sure I have no big egg whites in there, because otherwise what will happen is the egg white will come with the chicken and you'll have a big slimy spot. And then let me grab my panko breadcrumbs. I'm going to get it ready to add in for the second part. And these are seasoned ones, but they're going to give you that nice crunch. Okay, let me take my chicken here. Anytime you see this little yellowish fat stuff, cut it off. It's just going to be rubbery. Chicken fat just does not cook up well. You know, it's not like a steak where it can crisp up nicely. It just gets rubbery unless you're deep frying it like just by itself. Okay, that should be good. So we just took off a little bit of that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fillet my chicken in half so it's thinner, so we don't have these really big chunks. And then I'm just going to make kind of little strips that will be easier for us to kind of cut up for our salad.
Do you have a question? What knives do you use?
My knives are Wusthof Classic. I've had them for over 15 years and I absolutely love them. You know, I sharpen them probably like once a month or so once I notice them getting a little dull and they're cutting. But I got the set and it comes with like a honing steel, so it's really easy to sharpen up your knives. It may seem scary at first, but it's actually pretty easy. And I love them, hence they're still doing great. How many years later, you know what I mean? I did add them to my Amazon storefront because people ask me about them a lot. Love them, love them, love them. They are worth their money. Okay, let's get ready. This is going to be my dredging hand because this was the one that was touching my chicken while we were cutting. So when I'm dredging and doing anything this, I always try to keep one clean and one dirty. That way I can have a free hand to do stuff. So we're going to go through our seasoned dredge and we're going to coat everything first. Then I'll add some more panko back in, and then we'll do our egg wash with it, and then back into the flour, the panko and flour dredge. Here we go. Now, the reason you want to do this part first is it's going to keep the breading from sticking on. If you try to just dip your plain chicken in the egg, what will happen is that egg will just slide right off, and then your breading won't stick on. It acts like a binder. Okay. So we're going to take my clean hand. We're going to add about a cup of panko breadcrumbs in here. I like seasoned. I think it gives it a little bit more flavor, but plain also works. Mix it up. You can also use regular breadcrumbs, or if you're in a pinch, you can do like crushed crackers. They all work well. There we go. Now we're going to go into the egg, and you're going to just see how it just sticks on there nicely. And then we're going to go over onto our breading. And then what I do to help keep it stick on is I just really smush the breading down onto the chicken, and it's just going to help it stick better. So into our egg we go. And over. I find, I feel like back in the 90s, shake and bake was so popular, but it doesn't give you that really thick, crispy coating, which I love. And so I find this is the best method. It's a little bit longer, a little bit more labor, but I think it gives you a better product overall. Here we go. We're just going to press this down. Make sure it gets all stuck on there. And you can see how big they grow in size once you bread them. They're like twice the size. So a little bit of chicken can go a lot farther when you bread it up. Here we go. And once we get this kind of coated and breaded, what we'll do is I'll put my oil in, and we'll go grab our what are those called? Croutons. There we go. Croutons out of the oven because it's almost been 10 minutes. And then we can start making up our salad and our dressing. And our banana bread should be soon, and then our chicken done. Okay. Here we go. When I will say, when you're doing chicken, do cut it in half, make it thinner, because otherwise you have to cook it so much longer, and then you risk either burning the outside of it because you've cooked it so long, or you think you've got it cooked all the way done, but then it's raw in the middle. So I always cut mine in half. That makes it even thinner. You can even use like a meat tenderizer and thin it out even more if you want to, but I find that this thickness works really well. It cooks up, especially when you do about 350 for the oil heating. Okay. We've got our chicken here. I'll clear up this dredge and wash my hands. Get our oil going. And then we're going to pull out our croutons. Okay. I'm going to turn on my skillet here. This is just a non-stick hex-clad 12-inch frying pan. And then I'm going to add just enough oil to kind of coat the bottom of my pan. I don't go super high in my oil because I don't keep it, and going halfway is more than enough on the chicken, but you don't have to fill up your pan all the way. We're going to let that warm up. Put my chicken right here. let me wipe this down, and then we're gonna go grab our croutons and we can sneak a peek at the banana bread, see how it's going. Luckily, that's one thing I love about the mini loaves pans is it cooks it so much faster, but it keeps the whole thing so much more moist versus if you do it with the other one. So let's go grab our croutons. They've been about 10 minutes. We're stuck. Too many oven mitts. Okay, look at our banana bread. It is puffing up lovely. We've got our croutons here. Now, again, when you first pull them out of the oven, they're going to be softer, but they do crisp up and get harder once they've cooled. So don't try to crisp them until they're hard. Then what's going to happen is you're going to have a rock once it's finally cooled. Okay, we're going to let that warm up. While that is warming up,
You have a quick question. What kind of olive oil do you use?
I honestly use a variety of it. I buy what's on sale. This one's is the Graza, but I also love Kirkland's olive oil. I typically just buy the one that's on sale. Unless I'm using it to dip my bread in, then I'll look for a fancier one, an extra light one or whatnot. But most of the time I just like butter on my bread. So I'm not using it, that way. Okay, let's get our romaine chopped up and added into our salad. For our salad, we're just using 2 heads of romaine here. And we're going to add them in. I find heads of romaine stay fresher much longer than if you buy the bag. The bag, I think, goes brown really easy, which is just the natural sugar in the lettuce coming out and turning the edges brown. But my kids are like, oh, it's a little bit brown. It's completely ruined. So I like to buy the big heads because they'll stay fresh for a while. Because it's once you make the cuts on the lettuce or they get a rip, that's when they start to go brown. So we're going to bring that out.
You have a question? For the breading, did you use flour?
Yes. So I used flour and then I added panko breadcrumbs for the second kind of coating in it. And then they'll crisp up nicely. I have done it with almond flour, which works really well as pork rinds. If you do pork rinds, you don't want to bread them until right before they're going in because they can get soggy really quick. Okay, we're going to add in a little bit of some tomatoes for our salad. I'm just going to keep them full today. And add them all in there. Oh, just save a little bit. Okay, we have that. Let's make our salad dressing real quick. And so I always love to make myself like homemade salad dressing because I think it tastes so much better. I feel like store-bought really is chemically tasting. And once you start making homemade salad dressing, it's so easy. So we're going to do kind of a creamy balsamic. So we're going to use half of our base is going to be with mayo, which is like what you would do with a ranch too. But it's going to give it, that's just, my kids like a creamier dressing. When I was in college they have a salad bar there, I'd always mix half of their buttermilk ranch with their balsamic, and it was so good. So this is kind of like my variation of it. We're going to add in a little bit of cream here. You could use buttermilk as well. I've got just a little bit left, so we're going to use just the rest of this. Is about a tablespoon, but it will help thin it out. But we're also going to be using balsamic vinegar and lemon juice. So that was about a tablespoon of cream. We're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. You could also use red wine vinegar if you wanted, or white wine. Apple cider, it's not as nice tasting, so I kind of steer away from that versus, I think it tastes better with a balsamic. It has a nice, slightly nicer flavor. We're going to add in some fresh lemon juice. And I'm going to check my oil, see if it's nice and hot yet. So right now, this is a pretty juicy lemon, so I think I might get away with about a half. I want about 1 to 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. Let's see, I'm going to drop some of that lemon juice in here. Look how hot that is. That's perfect. So we're going to add our chicken in. If you drop, that's the way I test, is I just drop a little water in it. And if it sizzles right away, that's when I know that it is ready to start frying. And then I'm going to turn my my stove down to about a 5 because I don't want, again, to burn it. I want to cook it more low and slow. Let's see if we can't get 4 in here so we can do 2 batches of our chicken. There we go. And then we'll let them cook for a couple minutes, and then we'll flip them and let them cook a little bit more on the other side. I'm going to grab a baking sheet, and I'm going to line it with paper towels so that when we take it out, we're going to put it on the paper towel so that it stays nice and crispy and it soaks up any of that extra olive oil. It keeps the chicken from being greasy and keeps it crisp.
You have a question? How do you keep the dreading from falling off while you cook it?
That is how you do the dredging. So remember when I coated everything in flour first and then did the egg and then did the next coating of the flour and panko, and I really pressed it on? That first coating of flour creates like a cement that holds it on. And then your trick is to not mess with it. So just fry it and then flip it once. The more you play with it in your pan, the more likely it's going to fall off. So you got to be a little bit more gentle with it as well, but it should stick on fairly well. I'll get like a couple little things that fall on, but the whole breading should stick mostly. Okay, for our dressing here, we're going to add in 2 green onions. I'm just going to leave off the very white tips because they're going to be pretty astringent, and I don't want there'll be too strong of a flavor for our salad dressing. You could also use chives for this. And then once I get these chopped up, we're going to go grab those banana breads because they are sounding the alarm. But we'll get this chopped up first. Luckily with banana bread, you've got a good window of time before you go overdone. It's not like a macaroon where you've got 30 seconds to get it out before you've ruined it. Okay, we're going to do a nice fine mince on this. That way I don't have any just big pieces of green onions. There we go. Let's go grab our banana breads out of the oven. Okay. Look at those beautiful loaves. I'm just going to feel them. You know what? I feel like they might need, I'm going to rotate it maybe a minute or 2 more. I can always tell is when that dome on the top is firm and these have a little bit of a smush. So if you take them out now, what will happen is they will cave in because that very center patch isn't cooked all the way. So we'll let it sit in for 2 to 3 more minutes. I filled them up a lot, so it might take a little bit longer, but don't take them out early. I always say, give them a little tap, and if it's not firm, let it bake a little bit longer. Otherwise you're going to get a gooey center in it. Let's add in our green onions here. And then I've got some parsley as well. I'm just going to pull off any big stalks of the parsley so it's not super chewy. Now you could also use dry herbs for your salad dressing if you want. Then it will actually last a little bit longer in the fridge if you don't finish it up. But I think fresh herbs just gives you that really fresh flavor on here. And we're just going to use kind of our basics here, just parsley and green onions. But a lot of times I'll also add in oregano, basil, thyme. Those all play really well in it. We're going to mince these up again nicely because we don't want to have any big leaves in our salad dressing.
You have a question? Do you prefer green onions or chives?
You know what? It depends what I'm cooking. Green onions have more of an astringent flavor. And so if I'm going to do like a Mongolian beef or saute them up, those green onions will really be better. They'll hold their flavor better. Chives are great in sauces and dips, salad dressing. I probably would put a chive in here over a green onion, but I don't have any chives right now. They're more delicate in flavor. They have more of a stronger flavor, but green onions have an astringent flavor that get a little bit better with cooking. Okay, now we're gonna add in a little bit of garlic salt and a little black pepper. We're going on, I want about a teaspoon of garlic salt because we made a big batch of dressing here. And then we'll do just about a half a teaspoon, maybe a fourth to a half of black pepper. You don't want too much because it can overpower. Let's get this out, and then we're going to put the lid on and we'll give it a good shaky shake. There we go. And this is, you've got that, the balsamic gives it a light brown color. So if you didn't want a brown color, you could use a white wine vinegar. But it's going to be just a lovely creamy dressing. Here, we can pop it off in here. You see how smooth and creamy it is? But those herbs will just really set it up. The longer, like after about 5 minutes, it's going to be so delicious. Those flavors will really enhance in there a bit more. So let's flip our guys. So we've got this nice golden, darker brown coloring on it. That is from the paprika. The paprika gives the fried chicken a little bit darker of a color versus being really pale, which is more if you didn't use the paprika.
You have a question? Where is the dressing container from?
This dressing container is, I'm trying to see, OXO. This is literally right there. OXO salad dressing. I love it. I use it all the time. You know, I don't think I've added this to my storefront. I'm going to add this to my Amazon storefront because I absolutely love it. I use it all the time. And it has the really convenient measuring on it. So you don't have to like measure out. You can just pour and look at the measurements on the side. So I'll add it to my storefront when we get done with the stream because I have to say I highly recommend it. Let's do, I've got some fruit here to cut up while we're waiting for our chicken. And then we'll check on our banana bread here in just a second. Let's see. Let's start with, I've got a melon that we're going to go there. We have a cantaloupe melon. I was like sitting there and I'm like, oh, I've got to cut this up because it's about to go bad. Let me grab a spoon. We're going to scrape this out with the things. And then once we're done scraping this out, I think it's been about 3 minutes. So I think we'll go check on our banana bread. I didn't need much, but I knew if I took it out, that banana bread was going to sink because it was not. That's just the quickest way to check to see if it's done is you just give it a little love tap on the top. And if it's firm, then it's good. Okay. Get all those seeds out. And then we're going to go grab our banana bread. Okay. And then that will be ready there. Perfect. Yep. These are much firmer on the top. You see, I'm not really getting any bounce back when I tap them. And they've gotten a little bit more golden, which is perfect. So always double check. Don't just, I always say, don't just follow cooking things by what it's listed. Use that as a guideline, but everybody's oven cooks a little bit different. And if you try to follow things, you're either going to have a lot of times underdone or overdone. But you see these got this nice kind of firm. They don't really give much of a bounce back or sink in, which means they'll be perfect. And they're just, I will say, I'm excited. My kids love banana bread, so they'll be very, very happy with this today. Let's see. We've got it nice. So when you take your chicken out of the fryer, place it the oil side down because that's going to help soak up as much of that oil as possible. I'm going to let these cook a little bit longer. That one was done. I find that one side is always a little bit hotter than the rest. Okay, let's get our fruit cut up. I've got a couple different things. We've got our cantaloupe. We've got some golden kiwis, green kiwis, and strawberries. So we're just going to kind of make a fruit salad here. And then I've got a couple parts of this cantaloupe that went a little bit far. Oops, don't want to lose the oil on me. So I will say this will save you an arm and a leg. And I know I've said this several times before, so all my regulars know it. Cut your fruit up at home. Don't buy it pre-cut. It will save you lots of money. And there's like a little trick. So I always cut it in little slices like this. And then if you make your little cuts through it, your melon's going to fold flat like this, which means you can just take your knife and slide it across, no problem. And it will come up nice and easy. You don't have to you don't have to follow the whole thing round with your nail if you don't want to. That can be a little bit harder because you have to have a little bit cleaner knife skills. So you can always just slice it up like that, because I find this way is a lot harder than just go like this. Make your cuts. And because this melon rind is softer, it's going to fall down flat. And this works with most melons. The only melon it doesn't really work with is watermelon, because that rind is really, really thick. But honeydew, cantaloupe, pineapple, or canary melon, gold melon, hammy melon, this technique all works with. Okay, let's see. I think I've heard my sizzling up now. There we go. Add it on. Got a nice golden brown color. There we go. We're gonna let those cool. We're gonna pop our next set on. And when I always do it, I always do my biggest ones first, because that oil is the hottest at the beginning and it will cook up nicer first. And then my thinner ones to the second way. Okay, let's get this fruit cut up. And then we should be about ready to assemble our salad. I will say I've gotten pretty good about cutting up a cantaloupe or a melon. I can cut up one typically in less than 5 minutes if I'm sitting there doing it straight up, because it gets pretty easy. Like, once you know how firmly to push and whatnot, I will say you want to use a big knife on this versus a smaller knife. Like a paring knife would be awful to try to chop this up. But a nice knife with some heft behind it does a really good job. Yep. Put my peel in there. There we go. Let's take a little bit out of the way. But, you know, when you buy it in a store, they'll charge you almost like 300% the price of the melon. So I got this cantaloupe here for, I think it was like $3. And in the store, it's going to easily cost you between $7 and $12 for a medium-sized one to cut up. And you get more cantaloupe doing it yourself than that. So I always say it's a great way to kind of cut your fresh fruit bill in half if you just do a little extra work for it. I always cut mine up during like the meal, because there's always dead time when you're cooking. And this is like a great way to fill it up. I always give my kids fresh fruit with their meals. That way I know they're getting it, because if I rely on them to grab fresh fruit as a snack, they're just going to go to the pantry and grab something else. And it's really in no time that you'll have this cut up. Pineapple too. Pineapple, I think, is the worst offender of how expensive they overcharge. But once you learn how to cut up a pineapple, it's really easy. It's actually easier than a melon. Okay, so I like my big knife for the cantaloupe. But for my smaller ones, using a paring knife or a serrated steak knife works better. And so I've got my green kiwi here. And I always just cut off the ends. And then I peel it like this. And then I can just take my blade and slide it right underneath that skin and remove it there. I will say kiwis, there's no good way to eat a kiwi. It's, that doesn't take a lot of work. My sister, she always just cuts it in half and gives the kids a spoon to scoop it out of. And I was like sitting there and I'm like, oh, I should have done that, but my kids won't do it now. I've made it too easy for them. Here, this kiwi is a little nicer. And then we're gonna do our gold kiwis. If you've never seen a gold kiwi, I swear I'd never heard of a gold kiwi growing up, but recently I've seen them everywhere. They're delicious and they've got a nice golden hue to them. They're not as fuzzy. They're a little bit bigger than a regular kiwi, and they're sweeter. So they're nice. For some reason, Evie, my soon-to-be 10-year-old, thinks they have a banana flavor to it. Nobody else agrees with her on that sentiment. I think she's kind of crazy, but maybe somebody else will taste it. Let's see if these guys are ready to go. I think I had my oil a little hot there. There. I'm going to turn it down. I must have bumped my oil there. It was at 6 and I normally keep it at a 4, but we saved it before it got too dark, so that's good. Okay, let's get this cut and then we will be ready for our salad because those are going to be done in just a second here. We'll serve up. There we go. So we got our golden kiwi, which if you don't like regular kiwis because you think they're too zingy, try a golden kiwi. They're actually really delicious. Okay. Oh. There's our dogs alerting everybody in the neighborhood. Okay. We've got our kiwis here. Oh, our things. Loki, Bruni, Grace. Let's not be so loud. Okay, I got a avocado today, and I dropped it. So I was like, I've got to eat this one up today because once it bruises, you know how avocados are. They literally go bad so fast. So we're just going to add it to our salad. I was like, oh, it won't make it till tonight. It will be completely brown, and you can already see it starting to go brown. And I dropped it like not even an hour ago. That's how delicate avocados are. They go from being like perfect to being smush brownie grossness. So we're going to add these in here because that will go well with our salad. So we've got our avocado in here. And then we've got, I'm going to put a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Sprinkle our Parmesan cheese over the top. There we go. And then we're going to add in our croutons. And then we'll be ready to serve up our salad, which I'm sure my kids are hungry. They've been playing outside in the water play area. And so I'm sure they're nice and hungry, ready for lunch. Okay, let's grab a small cutting board here so I can chop up one of my chickens here for my salad. And grab a plate out. Nice and clean. Okay. While these are frying up, we're going to chop up one of our chicken here. You can see nice, tender, and juicy, cooked all the way through, but still very juicy, which is the best. And you can see the steam coming out of it. So let's serve up our salad. So we've got just a really basic garden salad. We've got tomatoes, some avocado in there, and of course, our sourdough croutons. I'm going to fill up half our plate with this because this is kind of the bulk part of our lunch. And then we're going to add our chicken right on top. Don't forget our homemade balsamic dressing, nice and creamy. We'll drizzle that over the top. And then we'll serve it up with a big scoop of our fresh fruit. And then last, but definitely not least, we're gonna throw in our banana bread. Look at these gorgeous banana breads. See, waiting that extra minute allows them to not sink down. Golden, perfect crust on the outside. Now, you guys ready? You have it on here, but I'm gonna show you guys. Look at that, how gorgeous and delicious that is. Just scrumptious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, if you want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can just go to the link on our page and just search for the title of what we cooked. So this would be like a fried chicken salad. And then we also have our Amazon storefront. So if you saw any of the cool gadgets we were cooking with, our pans or our spatulas or stuff like that, or I'm going to add the salad dressing thing to it, you can check that out as well. I try to add in there. But guys, thank you again for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.